quite strange that I'm doing the kids stuff. And you know why? Because I have a terrible memory. Sometimes I do not remember anything. And sometimes remembering all the details of a kid's story, it can be a challenge for me because I just don't remember it. But, you know, we learned quite a lot last week. And my question is, does anyone remember what a cubit is? Any of these ones here remember what a cubit is? Condy, can you give a clue what a cubit is?
Yeah.
Yes, cubit is finger to elbow. That's well remembered. And I thought instead of me trying to do a bit of a recap to remember where we are, I had a wee video, and there's actually a place in America, and they studied the measurements of the ark, and they actually made an ark to the measurements that Noah's ark would have been, and as much like Noah's ark would have been. So I found this wildly interesting because my mind very often works in numbers and, you know, and statistically, but it's not very good necessarily details of things in other ways. Oh, have we got sound?
How big was Noah's ark? The Bible tells us in Genesis 6:15 that God told Noah the length of the ark would be 300 cubits, its width 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. Of course, the question is, what's a cubit? A cubit is this measurement from your elbow to the tip of your longest finger. Now, if Noah was my height, I'm pretty tall, that would be a 22-inch cubit, meaning the ark would be even bigger than this one. There are plenty of cubits from the ancient Near East, anywhere from about 16.5, 17 inches up to about 19.5 inches. And what we noticed is that many of the major building projects, like temples and other things, were built on what's called a royal cubit or a long cubit, which is this measurement, and then you add the width of 4 fingers, so about 2.9 or 3 inches. So we took one of the shorter of the common cubits, 17.5 inches, and then we added 2.9 inches, which gives you a 20.4-inch royal cubit. That would give us an ark of 510 feet in length, 85 feet wide, and 51 feet tall, for a total of 1.88 million cubic feet. That's when you subtract for the curvature of the hull, and so it's quite massive, making it, as far as we know, the largest wooden ship on record. If you think of a semi-trailer, you would be able to fit 450 of those within that amount of space. And when you're thinking about how many animals can fit within each of those semi-trailers, if you were to pack them in pretty well, you could actually fit 120,000 sheep. Of course, Noah didn't need that many animals, so yes, he could fit the number of animals on the ark that he needed to. We're standing near the midpoint of the ark between decks 2 and 3, and this gives you a great view of how big the ark is, how long it is. From this point to the very end is about 250 feet. We're on a platform that's about 18 feet long, and if you were to turn around and look all the way back the other direction, it's another 242 feet, which gives you an arc of 510 feet in length. And you can see some of the massive timbers that were used here as well. This one is Engleman spruce that goes all the way up to the top and down to the bottom floor, so it's stretching over 50 feet in length, and some of these can be over 3 feet in diameter. And then we've also got our Douglas fir, a lot of these columns and headers like this one. You're also walking on bamboo, which a lot of people don't realize that, but it's pretty cool. There's so much wood used throughout this entire structure. In fact, if you were to put it all together, it's 3.1 million board feet, which is a 12-inch by 12-inch square by 1-inch thick. And if you were to lay all that out end to end, it would stretch from here to Philadelphia by highway, or actually as the crow flies from here to New York City. And you know what? You gotta come check it out for yourself. So depending on where you're watching this, you can click on the link below or check it out in the description.
Yes, so bit of a promotional video for those guys, but it gives you a good idea of what we recapped from last week. So what happened?
Hey everyone, this is Anthony from Singular Sound. In this video, we're going to be taking...
I didn't realize we were going all over the next video. So, what happens whenever the ark is built? You know? Who knows what happens when the ark is built? What happened? What went in the ark? Yes, animals. So you imagine they came in 2 by 2. That's what they say. And you had the elephant. and you had giraffe, which is definitely not me. I couldn't be a good giraffe. And you maybe had lions and everything else. And it talks about the animals and that God gathered up the animals. And so it says, the Lord said, go into the ark, and it said about taking in, seven pairs or seven of clean animals, which is very confusing because in the Hebrew it was Shiva Shiva, and they don't actually have a direct wording of what that exactly is. So we don't know how many exactly clean animals there were, because theologians dispute it. But the common theme of it is that it was 7 pairs is the one that people most likely say it is, of clean animals. And then there was the 2 by 2 of the unclean animals, which was everything else. And then what happened was God closed the door of the ark when they were inside. And rain poured. And how long do we think rain poured for? Does anyone know? 40 days. 40 days and 40 nights. And it says the mountains disappeared under the water. And in Genesis 7 and verse 20, it says that all the mountains were covered 15 cubits. So, in my head, that meant that Everest, which is the tallest mountain, so whenever I googled it, it was 8,848 meters. So it was covered 15 cubits deep because it said all the mountains. Now, I don't know whether the land has changed since back then and now, but in my head, there was a huge amount of water. And the ark floated on top of this water, and then the ark came to rest on top of the mountain. What was the mountain that the ark came to rest on? Yes, on Mount Ararat. And it says in Genesis 7 that in the 600th year of Noah's life, and in the 7th month, and on the 17th day of the month, on that day, all of the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened. And at that point, Noah was already in the ark for 7 days. And then in Genesis 8 and verse 14, it says, in the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth had dried out. So, how long is the time from the 2nd month on the 17th day of the month to on the 2nd month on the 27th day of the month? So, you're talking that Noah and the people in the family, they were on the ark for over a year because it's the same month there. So it's the 2nd month on the 17th day, so the 17th of February, and then it's on the 27th of February. So at that point it's a year and 10 days, and they had also said that they were in the ark for 7 days before that. So they probably reckon that they were in the ark for a year and 10 or a year and 17 days, roughly speaking. So we always think that Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth, that they were in the ark for just 40 days and 40 nights, but that's not actually correctly true because the time that it took for the waters to subside was 150 days, and then I think they were in the ark another 150 days after that, roughly. So yes, that's just to try and visualize it more realistically as to kind of what it would be. And how did Noah know when that they could get out of the ark? And firstly, Noah sent out a raven, and the raven, it went to and fro, but it didn't return. But the raven is a scavenger, so it managed to scavenge. And then Noah sent out a dove, and the first flight the dove found no place to rest, so it returned to the ark. On the second time Noah sent out a dove, it brought a freshly plucked olive leaf, and that was a sign that those plants were growing again, and the water had abated enough for trees to be showing and things, and it was a real sign of hope. Because we'll have to remember that Noah, they were in the ark for a really long time. It was near enough a year, and then on the third flight that a dove was sent out, the dove didn't return, meaning that the earth was dry enough for the dove to go and find a home. So then after that, Noah went out of the ark with his family, and God opened the door, and God sent a sign. Who knows what the sign is? Yes, a rainbow. So God sent a rainbow. So every time that you see a rainbow in the sky, that is God's promise to us that He won't flood the earth. So, yes, I hope that this will have been some sort of use to you in illustrating what kind of happened in the ark. And it's just good for us to remember that God keeps His promises, that God cares for us, and we can trust Him, but sometimes we will have to be patient. And that's something that I often struggle with, because I'm not a very patient person, but very often we think that the ark, it came and it flooded, and it was 40 days and it was 40 nights, and that was it, done. But it was far longer than that. We're probably in the ark over a year. So that's my little lesson on Noah.
Whenever you see a rain.